when we're dealing with strategic models, we're always looking at the fact that the engineer, the therapist, is an engineer of the solution. If our building fell down on us, right around us, who would we hold accountable? The structural engineer or the architect. Okay? So who's responsible for change in the strategic models? The therapist. Whereas who's responsible for change in the transgenerational, more continuous kinds of models? The actual client system themselves. Okay? So we are in these models taking sort of the notion of change, and we are saying we have the capacity now to engineer and to create change. And those of you that have some strategic training, I'm sure you recognize that you can create anybody's situation with anyone where change can occur. It's very, very easy to double bind, to paradox, to prescribe a symptom. You know, it's very easy to somehow set things up where people will be forced to change. And these are the models that really sort of develop that. So what's similar about the models? Some of the things that are similar are that they're all cybernetically based. What does that mean exactly, that they're cybernetically based? They're paying attention to some of the elements that relate to communication, to feedback loops, to how family systems or systems in general self-regulate. Okay? And that we're looking at now that behavior is the information we're looking at. Are we taking a look at the family of origin and what has gone on in this family for year after year? No. It's really now focused on what? What's in front of us, the here and now. Okay? So almost the behavior in the room or what the client's presenting. The goal is what? To solve the presenting problem. Is it much else? No. Are we going to have this interesting foray into the psyche of, no, we're not. Well, we're just going to be looking at what the client system is presenting us. And we're emphasizing positive feedback loops. Now, what does that mean, to emphasize a positive feedback loop?
Create change.
We're going to create change, meaning what?
We're going to excite the system, so
it's going to have to sort of reorganize itself. It's going to have some what we called it yesterday, negative entropy. We're going to introduce the capacity for negative entropy or negentropy, which is the tendency for a system to become more complex. Okay, because we're going to give more information to that system. Okay, so the major concepts when we go to MRI, okay, are as follows: that the family is involved in a vicious cycle of mishandled attempts to solve the problem. So what does that mean? A vicious cycle of mishandled attempts to solve the problem. Any idea?
Problems becomes the problem.
Okay. The attempted solution becomes the problem. So the definition in MRI is that the attempted solution is now the problem. With my clients, I do a little exercise with them where when I see them repeating themselves over and over again, in terms of trying to solve the problem the same way, and it continues to not work, what I tend to do is I say, okay, I'm going to do a little experiment with you, and I'd like you to get up, and I get my client to stand up. And I said, now, see that closed door over there? I want you to actually see if you can, and this will sound crazy, but just try to walk through that door without opening the door. Okay? And so I take them over to the door, and they say, no, I can't do it. I said, well, of course you can't do it. Come back here and do it. Let's try it again. Okay? Now, I'm not going to do it this time with you. You're going to do it yourself, but I want you to run full force at that door. Okay? That's what happens with the attempted solution. We try more of the same. A great example of it is, any of you traveled to Europe or other places? Ever notice Americans, do we sort of stand out in Europe? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And why do we stand out? When we try, well, first of all, we try to speak English to everybody. Okay? We don't speak or attempt to speak native languages often. And what happens when someone doesn't sort of understand what an American is saying to them? You speak louder. Sort of, right? If I talk louder, then they're going, okay. It's kind of silly. But that's still the attempted solution. It becomes the problem. The problem is that we're not stepping back and really looking at how we're attempting to solve whatever the issue is.
It's like the metaphor for insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
The metaphor for insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same results. Yes.
Expecting different results.
expecting different results doing the same thing over and over again. Yep, exactly. But that's the hallmark of the MRI or the Palo Alto model, okay? That the attempted solution is the problem, becomes the problem. And so what is our job with our, now listen to the jargon, with our customer? Do we call clients clients in the MRI model? No. We call them customers, okay? So we come in and work with a family, and the family presents with a problem. That is the problem we are looking at. We're looking at nothing more than the presenting problem they bring us. Okay? So families establish a pattern really overreacting or underreacting to whatever the problem is, and they repeat it over and over again. Okay? So we now talk about a little bit about things like first and second order change. Okay? Because that's one of the hallmarks of the MRI model and also the strategic models. Okay? So can someone give me an example of first order change? What is first order change? Change in the behavior. Okay? So it's change at a behavioral level. Do MRI or strategic therapists ever sort of prescribe in their treatment first order change? Yes. Of course they do. Of course they do. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, I want you to try this. When you go home, instead of nagging your daughter to do her homework, I would like you to just make a nice meal for her, okay, and not nag her, and just give her some space. And the client system may say, okay, I'll do that. That's just prescribing behavior. It's more than fine. However, what this model has offered us is the ability to use paradox. And do we remember where paradox comes from? Do we remember? I sound like a nurse in a hospital. Do we remember? Do you remember? Milton Erickson, yes.